dear friend, Honorable Dr. Andreas Parreira, as a member of an Indonesian House of Representatives. And my friends, colleagues from Mexico, once more, good morning, buenos dias, or in Indonesian, we call selamat pagi.
Selamat pagi.
It's a pleasure and also an honor for me to have an opportunity to talk a little bit and to give you a brief overview on a Pancasila, the foundational philosophical theory of Indonesia, an idea firstly formulated by one of Indonesia's most revered founding fathers of the nation, who has also Indonesian first president, named Sukarno. Before we going all the way to the substance, I think it's worth to mention that the word Pancasila itself neither has roots from Malaysian language, or we call it Bahasa Indonesia. Pancasila is an old Javanese word that's an original derived from the Sanskrit words. Pancha, which means five, and Sila, which means principle. Pancasila was foundational philosophy on the nationhood and state of the Indonesia. Begins its process of formulation from at least in the 1900s. Long before Indonesia proclaimed our independence in 1945, in ideas from various revivals movement from the soil of the Netherlands Indie back, such as Budi Utomo, Muhammadiyah, Nahdlatul Ulama, Indies Party, National Party of Indonesia, coverage uncovers to seek synthesis among different strains of ideology to form a code of shared nationality, that's Indonesia. Then a more serious, true discourse on Pancasila gained its momentum when the founding fathers of Indonesia convened on the first session on the investigative agency for the preparation of Indonesian independence, which was from May 29 to June 1st, 1945. The session was closed with Sukarno, his idea of 5 basic principles of incoming nation, which lay the basic features of Pancasila. Those 5 basic principles are Indonesia as a nation, internationalism and humanism, consensus and democracy, social welfare, and faith in divinity or God. It was the first time that various groups and revivalist organizations managed to find the consensus on the foreigner of ideological view. They reflected a unity and shared identity of the Indonesian nation. Later, in the investigative agency for the preparation of Indonesian independence, established a committee of 8 under Sukarno as the coordinator, which had mandate to collect or to compile the ideas, perspective from various national figures at the time, and to have those ideas discussed on the investigative agency next session on the 10th to 17th of July 1945. The spirit of gaining Indonesian independence was at its peak. Sukarno then formed a committee of 9 that managed to draft Indonesian preamble of the Constitution, which that agree on by the founding fathers and later known as Jakarta Charter by Muhammad Yamin or Mukadimah by Sukarno. The final formulation of those principles as previously contained in the Jakarta Charter was later slightly modified to accommodate the fact that Indonesian at the time was already a plural society comprised not only a Muslim, but also Christian, Buddhist, Hindus, and other society of the faith. Finally, on August 18, 1945, Indonesia Independence Preparatory Committee agreed on the complete formulation of Pancasila that we know that today. Those are And mind you, these are my unofficial translation of the principles. First, believe in God. Second, just civilize humanity. Third, the unity of Indonesia. Fourth, democracy. Five, social justice for all the people of Indonesia. Colleagues and friends, the existence of Pancasila cannot be and should not be separated from the understanding of Pancasila as an ideology of the nation. Pancasila should be understood of as the pillar, as the foundation of which the value of Pancasila then be translated into the objectives, goals, or ideals of the administration of the states, and as the foundation of which the visions of directions of the state and the nationhood of Indonesia is being manifested. Believing in God, humanity, unity, democracy, and social welfare are keywords to understand the twists and turns, complexities in seeing Indonesian history, present, and where we are going to the future now. Sukarno specifically mentioned that Pancasila functioned as the common norms at the collectively accepted by all members. Group of Indonesian society, as you know, it's not easy to find a common group, common ground when you are faced with the one of the most plural nation in the world. In other words, as a principle that are collectively accepted by elements of Indonesian society, Pancasila as a philosophy of the nation exists as a direct and a natural manifestation of the custom, way of life, religious understanding of Indonesian people. That being said, I appropriate to conclude that Pancasila as a state ideology is a fixed and not undergoing a short of development in terms of its meaning. Pancasila has proven to be able to adapt with the course of history. The essence of value of Pancasila could be developed in conjunction with the dynamics of the life of Indonesian nation. Has proven to be still relevant with the current fact of Indonesian way of life and cultures. Now, colleagues and friends, I will not go any further than that, but surely I would be happy my colleagues, Dr. Andreas Parreira, will give you more details about the Pancasila and give more question ask and answer to all of you. Before concluding my breakthrough, I would like you to know that even though the Embassy of Indonesia staff are currently working from home due to the COVID-19 situation, our activities are not stopped. Thanks to the rapid development of information and communication technology, we are utilizing fully the benefits of Zoom and other platforms to conduct our promotional Indonesian colleague or anybody to join our routine Indonesian dance, such as an Indonesian dance class every Wednesday. We have also conducted several Zoom sessions discussing several emerging themes under the time of the pandemic, among the others. How to handle psychological impact of COVID-19, the effect of COVID-19 towards our lungs and respiratory system. As an information to Dr. Parreira, we also had regular Zoom meetings, Mr. Parreira, with our Indonesian citizen, not only in Mexico, but also other states, which the embassy is accredited, Belize, Guatemala, and El Salvador. This is aligned with the direction from Jakarta for us to strengthen our effort in protecting the existences of Indonesian overseas. Again, for all participants today, stay in tune to our Instagram, Twitter, and Facebook account. And please let us know if you have any inputs or ideas or topics that you would like to discuss with us. Please, Mr. Parreira, It's your turn now. It's your time. Thank you to all of you. Stay safe and healthy. And don't forget, Quandadet et Casa. Back to moderator.
Okay, thank you, Pak Dubes. Thank you for your brief remarks. And then before we continue with our presentation with Mr. Dr. Andreas Hugo Pereira, let me read about his curriculum vitae. Dr. Andreas Pereira was born in the city of Maumere, Flores in 1964. His occupation now is a member, honorable of House of People Representatives. He's member of the Commission 10, which is taking care about the issue of education, tourism, youth, and sports. And Dr. Andreas, he's a member of the Indonesian Democratic Party of Struggle, or tourism. He's a lecturer in the Department of International Relations, Faculty of Social and Political Sciences in Parayangan Catholic University in Bandung. His educational background, he's a bachelor. He got his bachelor from the Parayangan Catholic University of Bandung in the international relations. He got his master's in from the Faculty of Politics and Sociology of German University of Passau, and he got his doctorate from the Department of International Relationship Studies, Faculty of Social Science in Justice, Liebig Universität Gießen, Germany. So before I give the floor to Dr. Andreas, let me remind you that later after his presentation, if you want to ask questions, just post it in the Q&A cap below the screen of your Zoom or in the chat room. So, Pak Andreas, the time is yours.
Okay, thank you very much, Pak Charles. Gracias. Good morning, everybody. Buenos dias. So in Indonesia, we have now selamat malam, good evening, or buenas noches. My dear friend, His Excellency, Mr. Hello? Hello? Can you hear me? Good morning, everybody. My dear friend, His Excellency, Mr. Cepi Wartono, the Ambassador of Republic of Indonesia for Mexico, Indonesian representative in Mexico, my fellow friends and audience from University of Anahuac, Colegio de Mexico. Thank you very much for having me in this wonderful occasion and remembrance of one of our most important date in Indonesia, in Indonesian history, the day of Pancasila. On this occasion, I would like to present you a little bit about Indonesia and Pancasila, as it is one of the most influential bedrock of our ideology and way of life, as well as a catalyst for Indonesia to unite in diversity until today, until this date. First and foremost, Indonesia stands as one of the biggest multi-pluralist nation-states in the world, with thousands of ethnic backgrounds inheriting different cultures, languages, as well as recognizing 5 different major religions and beliefs. There are 5 major religions, namely Muslims, Islam, Christian, Catholic, and Protestant, Buddhism, and Hinduism. Moreover, Indonesia is the biggest archipelagic country and recognized as the 4th most populous country in the world after China, India, US, and we Indonesian with 260 million peoples, with a majority of Muslim followers. In geographic terms, Indonesia consists of more than 17 islands, spreading across the ocean, the Indian and between Indian and Pacific Ocean. To give you a little bit more background, the size of Indonesia is comparatively larger than the whole of Western Europe. Can you imagine it? The whole of Western Europe combined from Istanbul to Great Britain. So big of Indonesia. With this vast pluralism and differences across the region, parted by islands across the ocean, the underlying question is, what could be the determinant factor that would unite us, Indonesia, as a nation state? That is the big question that not only for Indonesia, but for the people, many people in the other country, they ask why Indonesia can be a nation state. The answer is we have Pancasila. To look at this, we have to consider the historical standpoint of our country. Before our country was recognized as a legitimate nation state, we consist of different kingdoms in our archipelagic region. One of the longest standing kingdom of Majapahit recognized the region as Nusantara. Nusantara means the island in between two biggest ocean, Indian Ocean and Pacific Ocean, and between 2 continents, Asia and Australia. So Indonesia lie on between 2 biggest ocean and 2 continents. After the end of Majapahit era, kingdom in Indonesia is still well known as major hub for spice trading. This invites vast number of Western travelers to come and led to colonialization that standpoint for more than 3 centuries. The first colonization was led by the Portuguese army and followed by the Dutch colonial. A well-known factor for the fall of Indonesian kingdom is due to the fact that these kingdoms fight and walks alone at the time, so easily manipulated by the savviness of Dutch colonial army to fight each other over their differences. Within the colonialism era, in the beginning of the 20th century, emerged a number of young intellectuals and public figures in Indonesia that tries to unite Indonesia as one nation state and deter colonialist influence from the region. In the third decade of the 20th century, Indonesia's movement for liberation are highly motivated by various of political movements until the emerging of the Second World War. Indonesia was still occupied by the Japanese colonials. Before the end of the Second World War, the Pacific region, there was a vacuum of power in Indonesia, emerging from Japanese surrender to the Alliance force. In these years, the political movement that emerged earlier from a national committee for preparation of Indonesian independence that are tasked to organize a constitution, principle, and legitimate standing for the upcoming Indonesia. In that committee, intellectuals and founding fathers of the nation were forming a foundation of what makes Indonesia as a nation. There has been a huge debate among those forums. Number of intellectuals and public figures were coming up with their own thoughts and decree on what makes Indonesia as a united nation state. However, a man named Sukarno, which later will become the first president of Indonesia, of the Republic of Indonesia, came up with the concise idea which he called Pancasila. Pancasila means 5 principles. Pancasila consists of 5 principles, which are what Pak Dubes, Mr. Ambassador, has reminded before. Believe in the Almighty God, a just and civilized humanity, the unity of Indonesia, citizen led by collective wisdom in representation, social equity for all the people of Indonesia. This 5 principle was accepted by majority of the forums. Although at first, the first principle was based on belief in the Almighty God and the law of Sharia Islam. However, a number of public figures from Eastern Indonesia at the time, representing the Christian belief, as well as people from different religious background, were advising Mr. Sukarno and the committee to change the first principles so that it would be more inclusive for people from different religious background and to unite Indonesia as one even further. Hence, Pancasila became as what we know as today, a unique ideology only to Indonesia that would accommodate all ethnics, culture, religion, and languages into one Indonesia. Pancasila today become, or after independence, Pancasila become as a way of life, is a manifestation to implement pluralism as the nation's fundamental asset. It is catalyst for the nation, and it is incorporated in our motto, Bhinneka Tunggal Ika. That means unity in diversity. Pancasila today gave a color and inspiration to Indonesian people, to Indonesian nationalism, and social interaction in everyday life. As one example, we have 5 major religions and many beliefs that exist in Indonesia. However, in such diversity, the first principle of Pancasila, however, in such the first principle of Pancasila would lead us, Indonesia, to God as the source of our decree and would accommodate all religions in Indonesia. In social life, the main principle of social interaction in Indonesia is that we put humanity as our main principle. This would defeat the element of races, skin color, beliefs, and unite us Indonesia together within the basic of humanity. Also politically, Indonesia is still accelerating to be a better democratic nation, especially after the 1998 Reformation, with the main principle of people democracy, with direct voting as one of its implementation, where every single eligible person in Indonesia could participate in this process of democratization. We also have a representative body that also elected from grassroots level up to the national parliamentary. We have conducted this direct voting since 2004. For example, Mr. Ambassador was elected 2004 in the national parliament election. And the result as well as the process was well enacted up until today. This aspect shows how Pancasila as an ideology and way of life could be implemented in every aspect of nation-state capacity as well as for the people. However, I would say as a perfect as an ideology is, we are still fighting for social justice amongst our people. We have seen the disparity of socio-economic structure in our country. And that is one principle that we are still striving to reform every single day. Geographically, not every region in our country is managed with the same capacity. Some of the outer region, as well as East Indonesia, is still underdeveloped in terms of education, technology, and economic reforms. And that is a critical aspect of social justice in Indonesia. Following up until today, those spirit to reform and develop Indonesia as a nation is hampered by the recent pandemic. It limited our ability to develop economically and socially. Many of Indonesian people are affected by this pandemic, especially the ones who are marginalized, poor people in most cities and villages. Therefore, this pandemic is a threat to our cohesiveness as a nation. However, this pandemic also, in another side, also reform our solidarity and nationalism. Government and citizens are working side by side today to tackle these global issues. A recent data shows that Indonesia is in number 5 in the world for social works influence capacity amongst nation state in the world. This shows how Pancasila as an ideology still alive in Indonesia amongst its people. The spirits of humanity, gotong royong, help each other, the people that are enacted in Pancasila is carried by the peoples of Indonesia to tackle this pandemic together. While the biological cure are still developed by the scientists in the laboratories, people of Indonesia are spreading the social cure amongst their fellow countrymen as well as citizens of the world by giving them an example how to fight this pandemic together. I would say the Pancasila as ideology make Indonesia strong as a nation state, make Indonesian people strong, help each other. Most of all in this very difficult situation that we have now in the world, especially in Indonesia. So thank you very much. Gracias. Terima kasih for inviting me in our future discussion. Gracias. Selamat malam, selamat pagi.
Selamat malam. Terima kasih Bapak Andreas. Muchas gracias. Thank you, Mr. Andreas, for your kind presentation. Now maybe we can start with the
time for the discussion.
Yes, yeah, but we still have around 30 to 50 minutes to start with the question and answer sessions. And entonces, tal vez algunos de ustedes que están presentes desean hacerles algunas preguntas o tengan algunas dudas que desean hacerle llegar en una preguntas, por favor, adelante.
Saya.
Okay. Yes. Actually, we have one question. So okay, we will start with this question, and then afterward maybe. So if we still have time, we can put the question in the chat room. Okay. Now the first question, I think it's also it's to Bapak Andreas. How to maintain the value of the Pancasila amid the influence of world globalization on the formulation of politics and national strategies? This question comes from Ibu Maria Ayu.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Yeah, this
Hello?
is the first question, Pak, and then we can maybe you can answer it, and then we can wait for another questions. Okay, the question again, I will read it again. How to maintain the value of the Pancasila amid the influence of world globalization and the formulation of politics and national strategies?
Mm-hmm. Okay. Thank you very much for the question. The one and the most instrument to maintain the ideology is education. I would say that education play the most important role, most of all for the young generation, to give them the fundament, the basic value of the Pancasila, not only in the theoretical way, but also in the practical, in the practice way, how to live as an Indonesia, how to live as Indonesian citizens in Indonesia with the value of Pancasila. For example, what we have the most problem in Indonesia is the understanding each other in the religion way. That is the important, very important for the people, most of all for the children, to know, to learn from the beginning age that we have before in Indonesia in the Suharto's time, before with the Pendidikan Moral Pancasila, the Pancasila education. What after the Reformation time, we didn't have it. So in the next years, we prepare in Indonesia for the Pancasila education in our curriculum for the from the elementary, high school, and the university. I think that that's the main principle, main point of the how to maintain the value of Pancasila in our daily life of Indonesian people.
Yeah, Pak.
And I would say the another way. So what we also the important thing is the how the elite people in Indonesia, the behavior of the elite people in Indonesia as a model of the Pancasila in Pancasila values in their life, because we know that our people, they always see what the elite people do, and what they do is the model of for the people of the Indonesian. So one is education, and this the second I think that what important is the model life of the people, of the elite people, as what we call in Indonesia teladan, contoh, model for the life of the Indonesian life. So another question?
Okay. Ya,
or
terima
more
kasih
question?
Pak. Ya, ya tadi itu pertanyaannya lebih kepada bagaimana dengan di tengah gejolak saat ini Pak, bagaimana dalam memformulasi strategi dan perumusan politik begitu Pak. Tapi tadi but the answer, your response is also it's related to the second question Pak, about the religion in Indonesia. knowing that Indonesia have 5 major religions and many traditional religions. And we know that the issue of religion is one of the most sensitive elements in the world today. The question is how Pancasila guarantees the religious freedom in Indonesia. That's the second part. And also I will start also with the third question. Knowing that there's a new current policies in the politics and the philosophies of the ideologies that's been researched on the perspective of Pancasila. Bagaimana pertanyaannya lebih kepada saat ini ada aluran-aluran baru mengenai politik, mengenai filosofi, dan dari perspektif Pancasila bagaimana, Pak? And the other question is, in your personal opinion, regarding about this, do you believe that this pandemic has transformed us internally to realize that living in a globalized world does not mean that we should disengage from each other and emphasize our unique characteristic as citizens of our nations? Or what do you think about this changing, Pak?
The changing, or what changing? Hello?
Yeah, you mean, the question is that this pandemic has transformed us internally to realize that living in a globalized world does not mean that we should disengage from each other and emphasize our unique characteristics as citizens of our nation in order to regain a sense of belonging to our nationality. Or we will simply return to normally without any change.
Yeah. Okay, the last question. I start with the last question now. So living today in the global world, we cannot distance the social element of our life. So I mean, we are connecting each other. We know that's one of the biggest problems that we have now, the mobilization. One side, the mobilization of the people is a benefit for us, for our people of Indonesia. But another side, in this pandemic day, we know that's one of the problem that we have now is the mobilization of the people who are work in the foreign countries. They back to Indonesia and they bring the problem for us. That's a challenge for us. Yeah. So that's in the physically problem that we have. In another way, we know that as Pancasila, as our ideology, we know that we have also a problem with the information problem now. We live in a time that information flow, we cannot border the information only for our country. That's one of the biggest challenge that we have also in Indonesia now. So the main point for us, for Indonesia, to maintain our value, our culture, is to make the Pancasila strong, and Pancasila as our ideology. We keep that as our ideology, and what we have now, what we see now, we can still help each other. in our society. We discussed in the social media many dispute, but in social life, in the grassroots life, people can help each other. That is the most important point that I see. What what we have and still exist in Indonesia today. What I mentioned before, that we in Indonesia, our social life, the social care each other is stay in the fifth ranking in the world. It show us that the value of Pancasila is still alive, is still exists in our daily life of the people in Indonesia. So to compare with the ideology, the big ideology in the world, I'm sure that I'm optimistic that with Pancasila, we, Indonesia, as a nation, we are ready as a nation to contribute our values for the world also. Not only for Indonesia, but also for the world.
Oke, Pak. Terima kasih, Pak. Thank you, Pak. Well, it was also related to the second question tadi, Pak, about apakah ada filosofi baru, Pak, atau ideologi baru yang muncul setelah dari perspektif Pancasila pada saat ini di zaman sekarang.
Yeah, the new philosophy in Indonesia is like in another word. I think we cannot border it in, and we cannot menghadang that ideology and another value to come to Indonesia. We know that we have the big problem with the radicalism in Indonesia now, but we also optimistic. But the radicalism is only a dot in our nations. That what we need now is how the law system in Indonesia, strong law system to keep our nation from the radicalism. That's the big challenge for us in Indonesia. But to talk about ideology, to talk about the values, to come to Indonesia now is our life, our daily life. But with Pancasila, yeah, I'm quite sure that we can keep our pluralism. That every time we talk about the radicalism, we have another antithesa, that Pancasila. That more people in Indonesia believe that Pancasila is more important as our values than another values, for example, the radicalism.
Oke, baik, Pak. So we still have another question, Pak. I think it's from well, yeah, the question is about bagaimana Pancasila, how Pancasila apply to Indonesian migrants communities, especially where they are mostly in Malaysia, in Singapore, or the Netherlands. Bagaimana Pancasila apply ke warga negara Indonesia yang tinggal di Malaysia, Singapura, dan Thailand, Pak. Netherlands. Dan pertanyaan selanjutnya adalah tindakan atau program pemerintah apa yang dilakukan untuk agar Pancasila bisa diamalkan kepada generasi muda, terlepas dari adanya pendidikan Pancasila di sekolah-sekolah.
Yeah, what we as Indonesian as an Indonesia who who are living in the foreign countries, what we bring to our to another countries is our behavior, our behave. What's the very important point is, I think, that tolerance. We Indonesia known as the people who are very tolerant to another. That is our character, our character as in Indonesia. I think many the people when I lived in Germany, many German people always say that Indonesia is tolerance. Indonesia is very kind people. That's a point, a good point as an Indonesia who live in another country, and we should keep it. That Indonesia is a kind people. This Indonesian people is kind people. Indonesian people is tolerance. That is one of the character of Pancasila that we can bring abroad. Tolerance in our daily life with another religion, another culture, another language. That is very, 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 very important, and that's bring the character of Pancasila from the people of Indonesian people to foreign countries. So another question.
Ya Pak, terima kasih. Thank you Pak. I think we still have one question. It's from Pak Victor. Pak Victor Fernandez. He asked about we know that the age of Pancasila is the same age of our country, our nation, Indonesia, 75 years, and how to keep this Pancasila still living in our people, Pak.
Yeah, as long as I would say that as long as we will keep in Indonesia as a nation, we should have also keep Pancasila as our ideology of the nation. So if we want Indonesia as a nation state, then we have to have Pancasila as our ideology. Without Pancasila, I'm not sure that we can keep our nation, our nation state. So as long as we want to live as a nation state, we have to keep Pancasila as our ideology.
Ya, thank you Pak. Terima kasih Pak. Do we still have time, Bu Eva? Are you okay, Pak Andreas, if we extend a little bit more?
Yeah, okay.
Do you still have time? Because we know that in Indonesia we have a different time, 12 hours, and
12 hours.
Yeah, you should.
I always
take a
going
rest.
to sleep after 12 o'clock. No problem.
Okay, Pak. Sure, Pak. We have another question is here. Pancasila sebagai falsafah negara dan atau filsafat nasional dipahami dan dihidupi sebagai 5 pilar kehidupan bernegara. Jadi ini seperti masukan Pak, komentar. Jadi saya akan bacakan. tadi dipahami dan dihidupi sebagai 5 pilar kehidupan bernegara. Bangsa Indonesia dibentuk dan selalu hidup dengan keberagaman, budaya, dan ras. Orang Indonesia sangat berbudaya dan humanis, sangat santun. Dalam sila kedua, kemanusiaan yang adil dan beradab. Hanya sekedar komentar, akhir-akhir ini masalah sosial di negara karena tidak mengindahkan sila kedua. Di televisi ruang publik banyak figur dan tokoh politik yang tidak beradab di ruang publik. Contohnya kata sinting dan dungu buat kepala negara. Jadi ini suatu, maaf bagi saya tokoh publik itu tidak beradab sebagai orang Indonesia. Jadi ini suatu komentar Pak dari salah satu peserta dari Irenius.
Yeah, one side we are talking about the democracy. Another side, we want to keep our culture sopan santun, kebiasaan, our habit as Indonesia, talk with very polite way. But yeah, we have to accept that we in Indonesia now, we have many people with this many style that maybe in the last in the three decades before in the Suharto's time, we never seen one who criticized very hard with the very hard word. But now in Indonesia, people talk is very open, very with the very democratic way, like in US, like in the another country. That problem is whether they against the law or not. That's the question. With the way they talk, the way they express, giving the expression of their idea. So I means the style of the people in East Indonesia is different with the style of the way to talk of the Javanese people, the Bataknese people. That's the pluralism of Indonesia. So we have to accept this, the character, the different character of Indonesia also. That we never have before in the time of Suharto, for example. I know that who asked that the Irenius question regarding for the Rocky Gerung style. Rocky Gerung now is one of the very popular person with his style. So very debatable about the character of the style of Rocky Gerung now. But we have to accept that in Indonesia we have different people with different way to express their idea. So it's the pluralist of Indonesia. The question is whether he against the law or not.
Okay, Pak. There was a question that maybe you skipped the response, Pak, about what the act from Indonesian government to instill of Pancasila to the younger generation beside lessons in school. Bagaimana bisa Pancasila itu terus bisa diamalkan untuk generasi muda, Pak, selain yang pelajaran yang diberikan di sekolah.
Yeah, I think the important way to educate the young generation is from the family. What the parents do, the children will do also. Family is the basic of the education. That we now in Indonesia, we think that education always the task of the school. That we also discuss in the Commission 10 in DPR, that how the values Pancasila, yeah, also the parents, the parents of Indonesian people, they give the children as a model for their life, and what important for the parents is the basic of the value of the religion. And if we talk about the religion, we talk about the ketuhanan yang Maha Esa. And what itu ketuhanan yang Maha Esa, we talk about the tolerance. So back to the family, I think that's the religions play a big role to give the value, ethic, moral for the family, for every family, outside the education in the school. Because if we talk about the family, so we know that all Indonesians have religions or beliefs. If it asked in Indonesia, what's religion you have, then all Indonesians have religion or beliefs. So religion or beliefs play a big role outside the school as a education agent.
Okay, thank you, Pak. Okay, I will read kind of a summarize of our lecture today, and I will read it in Spanish. As we know, como sabemos, Pancasila es los principios básicos de Indonesia, que consiste en 5 principios o pilares, como se mencionó en la presentación del doctor Andreas: creencia en Dios, humanidad, unidad de Indonesia, democracia y justicia social. Para Indonesia, estos 5 principios de Pancasila acomodarían todas las etnias, culturas, religiones y lenguas en una sola nación, que es Indonesia. Sin embargo, todavía existen asuntos pendientes en resolver para el pueblo de Indonesia, como la disparidad en las estructuras socioeconómicas, particularmente que se relaciona con el tema de la pandemia de COVID-19. A pesar de todo, el pueblo de Indonesia ha contribuido proactivamente en la lucha contra el COVID-19 a través del espíritu de solidaridad incrustado en el principio de Pancasila para luchar juntos contra esta pandemia. Okay, once again, thank you, your honorable Dr. Andreas. Thank you very much. You have been very generous and clear message to us on your presentation and response to all the participants. And we hope that we can meet again in other opportunity to everyone. And thank you also for attending this class or online class. So we wish you to have a stay healthy and stay safe for everyone. Thank you, Pak Dubes. If you have any other things to add, Pak.
Hello?
Hello?
Thank you very much, Pak.
Eva, silakan Eva.
Halo? Ya, terima kasih. Thank you very much, Pak Charles as moderator. Pak Dubes, and all of our participants in our future class. Thank you for invite me to discuss, to giving a presentation about our ideology of Pancasila. And I hope one day we can meet, maybe in Mexico City. Before Pak Dubes back to Indonesia, I hope the one day I will visit Mexico and we will meet in Mexico. Thank you very much. Muchas gracias.
Yeah, we also want to thank to the people from the University of Anáhuac, Oaxaca, from Diego, from Margarita Villalobos. Muchas gracias a todos por participar en esta sesión. Pak Dubes, Bu Eva, adelante. Silakan, Pak.
Yeah, well, on the behalf of the Indonesian Embassy in Mexico, I would like to thank to my colleagues, Dr. Andreas Pareira. Please do not hesitate to contact us if there any question, to all of our Mexican colleagues if there are any question after this webinar. Terima kasih, Pak Andreas Pareira. Once more, thank you very much for your hospitality, for your speech, and very generous speech for us, and very helpful and very make us more open-minded in Mexico, especially for the Mexican people to know more about Indonesia, especially for the Pancasila ideologies. Once more, back to Ibu Eva as an organizer.
Thank you for you all for participating in this meeting. So have a nice day. See you on other occasion.
Izin Bu Eva,
Siapa?
mau nyalamin adik.
Oh, boleh. Mungkin udah bisa nggak di recording, Mas Adi?